Mr. President.
The Senator from Florida.
Mr. President, right now, American families are worried. The White House thinks inflation is a high-class problem. I clearly imagine the price of product bags has gone up, but what the White House continues to miss is that inflation is killing the buying power of Americans on low and fixed incomes. Across America, families are going through grocery store aisles seeing higher prices and having to figure out what they can afford to eat this week. Folks are passing by gas station after gas station, looking for lower prices to no avail. These aren't just headlines and stories. These are real families who are living paycheck to paycheck and struggling to keep up. I grew up poor. When my parents' bills went up, it meant it was more difficult for my family. When gas prices went up, it meant we had less food to put on the table. None of us would wish that on anyone. But that's exactly what's happened in Biden's America. High prices on food, high prices on gas, empty shelves, and supply shortages. Skyrocketing debt and big government overreach. And that's just the start. Energy prices are through the roof. Let's take a look at the rising cost of the pump. Just this week, the South Florida Sun-Sentinel ran a story with the headline, quote, "Gas prices hit their highest level since 2014. When will we get a break?" Unquote. As gas prices keep rising, the message from Florida couldn't be more clear. Last week, the national gas average was $3.36 a gallon. It was $2.16 per gallon this time last year. That's a 55% increase in just 1 year. If you're driving a car, that means seeing an extra cost of about $800 annually. If you're driving a truck, that means you're probably seeing an extra cost of $1,400 annually. And more than 5,000 gas stations across the country are charging more than $4.50 a gallon. In one California community, gas was nearly $8 per gallon last week. That's insane. Prices may go up even more as forecasters warn that oil could rise to more than $100 a barrel. But rising costs don't stop at the pump, they follow you home. For nearly half of U.S. families that use natural gas to heat their home, it's going to cost them $746 just to stay warm during the winter months. And if you're using electric heat, prepare to spend more than $1,200 on your electric bills. Reports show that this winter, home heating prices are going to rise by more than 40% for homes that use heating oil, more than 30% for homes using natural gas, and 54% for homes using propane. Factoring in the rising cost of meat, diapers, milk, and other everyday items, and things are looking pretty dire for the American family. Last week, President Biden said he doesn't have a near-term answer for reducing gas prices. He doesn't appear to have a long-term answer either. In the meantime, he expects families to just hang tight while he does nothing until next year when things magically get better. We all know President Biden likes to play the blame game. This time he is blaming OPEC for not pumping out more foreign oil. Remember when America was energy independent? Not anymore, thanks to Joe Biden. He's done everything in his power to cut off America's domestic supply and resources needed to warm our homes and run our cars. In his first month in office, he cut the Keystone Pipeline permit and killed thousands of American jobs. Then he suspended new oil and gas leasing and drilling permits for federal lands. He filled his administration with people who have been long-term advocates of carbon tax, including Treasury Secretary Yellen, which would only make the current problem worse. And he has others, like Interior Secretary, who wants to completely ban fracking. Oddly enough, he supported Russia getting the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which gives Russia a massive win. And he's put his back at the Paris Climate Accords, which are already ruining Europe. European countries are scaling back on oil and gas production to meet the Paris Agreement. In Portugal, electricity prices have tripled over the past 6 months. And Germany's prices are 3 times the U.S. average. Across Europe, they have to rely on energy imports from Russia. Instead of pursuing a path of energy independence, Biden continues to push ridiculous energy policies in his massive $5.5 trillion spending package that will cut our legs out from under us and cause America to become even more dependent on Russia and the OPEC countries. And he is relentlessly pursuing a reckless tax and spending spree that, even though we know reckless spending is causing inflation. These effects might not be felt by President Biden, but I can tell you that since Biden took office, more families across the state of Florida and across the nation have felt the pain of having to count their pennies. Mr. President, for the sake of American families, we need to figure out what the heck is going on. This is why I've introduced a very simple bill to get the bottom of these sky-high prices. I'm thankful for Senators Marshall, Lummis, Capito, Johnson, Moran, and Blackburn, who have co-sponsored this legislation. The Gas Price Act will simply require the Energy Information Administration to report publicly to Congress on any federal agency policies or regulations that it determines will cause energy prices to rise. All my bill does is ask a federal agency to provide important information to us in Congress with a statement of facts on what's causing rising energy prices since President Biden was sworn into office. Then we can all take this information, see what needs to be fixed, and help the American people. That's it. Let's tell Americans why it's happening, and let's figure out how to fix it. It's as simple as that. I'm sure none of my colleagues would disagree to keeping Congress informed about new rules or policies that have a negative financial impact on families in our great state. As in legislative session, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of Senate 3086, which is at the desk. Further, I ask unanimous consent that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
President.
Is there objection?
Reserving the right to object, Mr. President.
Senator from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise to object to the senator from Florida's request to pass this legislation through unanimous consent. If we want to tackle rising fuel costs, let's do something that will actually protect American consumers and actually promote our energy independence. Let's reinstate the fossil fuel ban that was lifted in 2015. So listen to what's happened here in our nation since 2015, when every Republican, when they controlled the Senate, on the Senate floor, voted to lift the ban on the exportation of oil from the United States. That ban had been in place for 50 years to keep American oil here. Well, here's what the Republicans did, House and Senate, back in 2015. They lifted the ban. Oil companies from the United States now send our oil overseas. And get this, in 2020, we exported more than 8.5 million barrels of petroleum every single day out of the United States to other countries. And in 2020, pursuant to Republican senators in 2015, we in 2020, for the first time in more than 50 years, exported more barrels of petroleum every single day. Exported it, then imported it. Is that energy independence? I don't think so. And why do we do it? I'll tell you why we do it. It's for the oil companies. That's why we do it. The Republicans don't want to do anything on climate change? Oil companies. The oil companies want to export American oil, drill for here in the United States, because they can make more money selling that oil into the international marketplace. Of course, that's what the Republicans are going to vote for back in 2015. And here's what happens. You get up to 2021, and we now are net exporters of petroleum in our country. So the bill that is being proposed, it would actually do nothing to help consumers at the pump. The one thing that we could do is reimpose the ban on the exportation of these 8.5 million barrels of oil a day. Keep it here. It's lower priced. It's drilled for in the United States. Our economy would get the benefit of that lower priced oil, and people would be going up to the pump paying a lot less per gallon of gasoline than they're doing right now. But you're not going to hear anything from the Republican Party that takes on the oil industry and their international market using American oil to make more money because people in the rest of the world will pay more for it. But that leaves less American oil here for drivers as they're pulling in to the pump every single day. So this is just the greed of the domestic oil industry so that they can have unlimited international energy markets, so that ultimately, and this is the beauty of it, they make more money overseas, and they get to tip American consumers upside down at the pumps as they've got their fingers on this nozzle and watching this price of gasoline go up even as they're looking at it. It's a beautiful world for the oil industry to have the cooperation of the Republican Party on this agenda. And so all I can say is that this proposal is just the opposite of what we should be talking about. The Republicans should be re-examining their own conscience about what they did in 2015 instead of shedding crocodile tears today as though Joe Biden did this. This net export of petroleum products is a Republican idea driven by the Republicans who sit here on the Senate floor. And so in no way should this resolution pass. So I object to the senator's motion for unanimous consent.
The objection is heard.
Mr. President,
Senator from Florida.
that would be interesting if it was true. I mean, if you think about it, you can look at oil prices, and they're international oil prices. I mean, it's illogical to believe that an American oil company wants to spend the transportation dollars to send oil overseas if they could sell it in America. So, first off, I'm truly shocked that my colleague would say those things. I'm shocked that he would object. Look, I get it. I know my Democrat colleagues have to bend over backwards to protect the Biden administration's disastrous energy policies. But I find it hard to believe they would go so far as object to basic transparency. Maybe if what my colleague said was true, then my bill would show. They would come back and say, yep, that's exactly what happened. My bill would simply provide us with greater insight into the cost of rising gas and energy prices in the United States. We must be committed to making the American dream work for everyone, ensuring that every family, including poor families, have the chance to get ahead. I think about my mom and dad. I watch them struggle to make ends meet. This inflation, these gas prices, food prices, all these things are hurting the poorest families in this country. When you have very little, like we did, and prices go up, gas prices, food prices, it means it's a very difficult time for these families. Hardworking families are trying to get by. We need to provide more information to Congress so we can make good decisions and figure out why these gas prices are going up the way they are. So I'm disappointed that my colleague would object to a simple way of trying to figure out exactly what's happening here, why are gas prices going up, and what should Congress be doing to make sure that doesn't continue. I yield the floor.